One of them is actually having a clear definition of what permaculture is. Having the decision makers, the people who are actually going to approve the project, be able to not only understand, but be able to articulate to someone else what permaculture is and what this project is all about. That's one of the barriers, I think, and that's an easy thing to actually fix, is if you can create a really clear, actionable plan. That's sort of the thing that the decision makers are really looking for.
One of the big ones is permaculture. The very word permaculture is not a very popular, doesn't test well with people. So there's a lot of talk about, is that really the term we should use? Should we call it regenerative design? Should we abandon the term permaculture? Some people are really attached to it. I like it, but I also think, strategically, sometimes you don't use it if it's really advantageous, if it's going to really be a block. It doesn't have recognition right now, positive association in people's minds.
People in this whole permaculture movement have great ideas, but translating it into a language that the decision makers can really relate to and understand that it's going to help them achieve their mission, that's the real key. And most of the people are very passionate about permaculture, but it's a different skill set and they don't quite know how to do that.
Permaculture is not a set of things. It's not even a set of techniques, right? Brock Dolman says we got to get away from the nouns of permaculture, which are very big and shiny and easy to grab onto, and realize permaculture is a verb. It's a method. It's a way of doing things. Much harder to market a way of doing things. We're a thing-based culture. We really like things. We buy things. We trade things. You count things. But a way of doing things is a marketing challenge.
I would have taken more reference shots before I did any single move. And if I could use timeline photos, and if I could put the timeline running against the dollar inputs to the energy inputs, if I had that technology, I'd be using every single bit of it I possibly could. Because I realize we have to prove to people with some facts and figures and some reference material that before it was like this and now it's like that. They don't understand the changes that happen over time.
I don't come from a business background, and I actually initially I rejected kind of business as an approach, because it seemed to me when I was much younger that money was partly what was causing a lot of our problems in the world. And I thought, well, why would I want to participate in that? And what I'm realizing is that money is really just a tool, and it allows us to leverage our good ideas and get them out so that more people can participate in the solutions.
I think maybe something that would have been doable earlier on was to actually get some pretty basic business skills behind me. And that's probably the only thing I would change. Maybe learn a little bit more about marketing and business management and some of the very unfun things that are absolutely necessary. And kind of once you're in the midst of running a business full time, especially one like mine that requires me to be away from home for extended periods of time, it's hard to go back and gain those skills. So it becomes purely trial and error as you go.
They don't really know how to be clear about their vision and their mission, to say this is exactly where I want to go, and here are the criteria by which success can be measured. So thinking in the beginning about what the end is going to look like and being able to say this is what we're going to do by when, because that's what decision makers need to know in order to be able to give them the funding and be able to help them.
There's a lot of people that start permaculture businesses are starting out with a philosophy rather than a set of skills specific to that business. So it's really important to recognize that maybe you don't have the technical skill set that you need, and that definitely was our case. So I had some hard lessons and some adventures, but I think asking questions, seeing other people that are doing things well, seeking those people out. I find that most people that are in the same industry and are doing things well are usually pretty friendly and collaborative.
One of them has been the produce that we sell, and initially we started off just selling fresh produce to people that would come to the house, and we found that to be very inefficient in that we were not adding value to the product that we were selling, so we weren't getting the most out of what we had, and also people were taking up a lot of our time browsing around, And so we've brought it to the point where it's all dried goods. So we're adding that value through drying. And we sell through our web store, which is much quicker for us, gives us larger access to the national U.S. market.
Learning about the importance of marketing, because in the end, marketing is a tool that we can't go around. We must go through. We must be good marketers, and for us to learn about marketing was challenging. But now we surrounded ourselves with some marketing people, and it's been really, really helpful. And of course, breaking through the ice when until we reached that point where momentum was more evident. It took us a lot of energy to get to that point. Now we can enjoy kind of a natural growth or a wheel that's turning. So getting to that point was challenging. We're very happy now that we're over that.
Clarifying who is your client base, who is your demographic, who's your favorite client. I run on a model right now is I only work with people I can hug. And it's great because it really limits the field really quickly. And so right now I have 4 clients, which are fantastic. They call me whenever they need to. I call them whenever I need to, and we have a fantastic time.
That's kind of been a challenge, is to build some credibility in a field that's dominated by folks who have that professional credentials. And I think that's going to be something I will always contend with. But my reputation is entirely based on what I do on the ground, and its functionality and beauty and the fact that it's well built, rather than any specific credentials I have.
The challenges have been a lot of it's just fear, honestly, and not having a lot of confidence in being able to make it happen. If you're someone that's starting without any funding, it can be scary to quit your day job and or even it can be scary to have multiple weird side jobs while you're trying to start your business up, which is what we've done too. Is just keep working little side jobs and keep putting that money back into the business. And I think that probably just having courage is a challenge, and being a very small business up against a lot of the big, huge nurseries or other big farms is kind of a challenge too, just to kind of get your name out there.
I really learned to overcome my fear of rejection. I would show up with my sprouts and they would say, great, I like them, or I don't like them, or come back, or I'll order them. And then I wouldn't hear anything from them. And so even the ones that said, I love them, come back soon, or let me put it in an order, never heard a word. And so I realized that I had to come back over and over and over again until they actually told me, I don't want these. And if they don't tell me no, I'm gonna show up again. And that mentality of the persistence has been so valuable to me. It's incredible. In my current business, Seedwise, I'm recruiting seed farmers to sell their seeds on the site. And until they tell me no, I'm gonna call them and try to help them get more sales. And what's interesting and really neat is I've gotten emails from some of them saying, at first I wasn't interested, but because of your persistence, I decided to give it a shot.
It really took me a long time to understand that you have to build up a relationship of trust, and people need to really get a clear understanding of what you're doing, and you need to have some rapport with the community to get them to trust you enough to give you their money.
Well, in any ranching business or farming or ranching, it's very expensive. There's a lot of upfront investment that needs to happen. And my husband and I have both really made big sacrifices in terms of our workload.
Long hours for low pay is definitely one of the challenges. I think everyone undergoes that when they start up their business at least.
Challenges have been, prioritizing time. Obviously, for a while, there was 2 of us.
When you have a business that you start out, you probably lack capital, and you are leverage pretty heavily that you need to pay your bills, and so you're going to take on things, pretty much anything you can get. And your opportunities are going to be limited because you don't have your name out there.
Young farmers, and myself included, get a little bit obsessed with the idea that we need to own land in order to do long-term perennial agriculture, and it's just not true. I mean, I've seen amazing systems, food forests on rented land, on creative leases. Some of the most inspiring permaculture sites that I've been to aren't owned by the people that are farming there. And I think that that is the one thing I wish I would have done differently, is not obsessed so much about working towards the goal of land ownership.
The land isn't the barrier because you don't have to buy land. You can just lease out people's front and backyards. And so, you know, people would just approach me with their and say, hey, I've got this lawn, do you want to use it? Just, you know, they get some vegetables and I do all the work. And so there really isn't a lot of barriers. Sometimes you run into things with city municipalities, but it's nothing that's really hindered my operation in any way.
What I would do differently if I were to go back and do it all over again would be just to take more time to keep myself centered, because I find that in the work that I'm doing there's a lot of people and there's a lot of kind of energy flows that are pulling me in different directions, and there was a long time period where I didn't take enough time to make sure that I was centered and healthy and had enough energy to do all that stuff, and so for almost a year I was kind of running on fumes, and until the point where it kind of all just crashed and I had to take a 4-day vacation to San Diego.
If I started again, I would probably grow slower. I doubled my size and profits, or I doubled my size and I doubled my gross every year for 4 years, and by year 4 it was insane. It was just a lot of employees and a lot of overhead expenses. So I would grow way more incrementally. I tell people, if you're going to think about getting a spin farm going, start at a 1/4 acre and maximize that 1/4 acre until you're pulling the most possible profit you could off that land.
We haven't had any challenges or barriers. That's a lie. There's all kinds of problems. And each one's a great opportunity to learn. We've had problems with clients. We've had problems with our own process. We've had problems with partnerships, problems with the weather, problems with equipment. And I think all of it, is a lesson. And when you work with someone who really, really knows what they're doing, it's funny, they have a very particular process, and once you gain a bit more experience, you really start to understand the value of each of these small steps, because there's some large mistake lurking just under that tarp, or just on the other side of this contract that folks might not see unless they've had the experience of being there. So, they're all great opportunities.